If you're thinking about retirement to play it safe, this video might change your mind. Most people assume that working longer means retiring richer and therefore having a better retirement. But in reality, retiring later can often hurt more than it helps. I've helped hundreds of people retire. I've seen firsthand how waiting too long can cost you in time, health, and purpose. So today I'll show you the real cost of retiring later and how to figure out the right time to retire based on your goals, not your fears. Let's get going. Let me tell you about a guy that I met once. We're going to call him Jim. Jim was 62 when he first reached out. He had about $1.4 million saved. His mortgage was paid off. He had a pension that was going to be kicking in a few years at 65, and he was burned out. He really just didn't like his job anymore. He worked for a newspaper, and I don't have to tell you the kind of changes he had seen over his 30 plus years of doing it. But every time we talked about retiring, he said the same thing to me. Just a few more years. I want to be absolutely sure. Now, on paper, Jim didn't need to work another single day, but emotionally, he felt like retirement was a finish line he wasn't allowed to cross yet. He had given himself an artificial barrier. He didn't retire because he thought those last couple of years of work would make all the difference in the retirement he'd be able to live. And so here's what happened. 3 years later, Jim finally retired, but then shortly after retiring, his health took a turn for the worst. He got a diagnosis, and all of a sudden, the long trips that he and his wife had dreamed of, when he finally hung it up, they never happened. He had the money to do it, but he no longer had the time. And so here's the hard truth that we can learn from Jim's story. Delaying retirement doesn't always add value. It might add dollars, but continuing to work subtracts something as well. It subtracts life. I've talked before about how life is all about trading your resources. Time, money, energy, attention, health. Those are your resources. Choosing to continue to trade time and health for more money that you don't need, it's a bad trade, but people do it all the time, and it's because of these invisible barriers that they've built in their minds. George Lucas, the creator of Star Wars, has this awesome quote. You know I love me a good quote. His quote was this: "We're all living in our own cages with the doors wide open." And he's so right. We've been sold this idea that working longer is the safe move. I put safe in air quotes there because it's just not reality. And so oftentimes we continue on that path longer than we need to at a cost that we can't yet see. Let's break down what really happens when people delay their retirement. They trade time for money that, as I just pointed out, often they don't need. They lose the healthiest years of their life that they have left, and they risk burnout, regret, missing out on moments with the family, and worst of all, they rarely get the payoff they were hoping for, because if it's literally just to die with more money, as in you had enough to retire and do all of the things that you wanted, but you kept piling more on top, there's no actual tangible benefit to you. You traded valuable resources for something that you didn't need. Think about it kind of like this. Imagine you were in a cold cabin in the woods, but you got 6 blankets, and then you got a little something to eat, and some guy shows up at your door. He knocks on the door. You open the door. He offers to trade you another blanket. It's real cold out here. I got another blanket for you, but he wants your food in return for it. You'd never make the trade. You got plenty of blankets to keep you warm, but you need food to eat. You don't need a 7th blanket. Meanwhile, I see people with more than enough money in their retirement accounts, more than enough blankets, trading away resources that they can use just to stack another blanket in the corner, and I see it all the time. That's what happens when people delay retirement without a real purpose, without a specific reason to do it. Let's break down those 3 big costs of delaying. One, first off, you lose time, and that's the one thing that you can't get back. You can always make more money. You cannot make more time. Most people's healthiest, most energetic years in retirement are in their early 60s. That's when you want to travel. You want to explore. You decide to hike Machu Picchu if that's your thing. Waiting until 67, 68, 70. You might still retire well, but you're going to be a little more tired than you were when you were 60, 61, 62. The second thing, you fall into the just one more year trap. This is a trap I see all the time. You tell yourself, I'll work one more year just to be safe. But then the next year, same thing happens. You move the goalpost. This is where the regret really starts to build. In all of my years of doing this, that's being a financial advisor, not having a YouTube channel. In all my years of being an advisor, I've never worked with someone who regretted retiring early. I've talked to a lot of people who regret working too long. Let that sink in for a second. 3, your risk of life disruption increases. A health scare, just like Jim from earlier. a company restructuring, a parent that needs care. Life doesn't wait for your spreadsheet to be perfect. Retiring on your own terms is better than being forced into it at a time that you don't choose. If you're within 5 years of retirement, don't make these decisions in a vacuum. This is exactly what I help people figure out every single week. We'll walk you through your numbers, your income options, your ideal lifestyle, and we'll map out your clear vision retirement plan. If you want help figuring out when you can realistically retire and how to turn that savings you have into reliable income, I offer a no-cost consultation. You can use the link below to schedule one. All right, so let's flip this thing around. If retiring later can be a mistake, how do you make the right decision? I'm going to give you 3 simple steps that you can follow right now. Step number 1, know your enough number, not your maximum number, not your dream retirement. Know your enough number. That's the number that lets you live the life that you want without worrying about oversaving and under living. If you're not sure what your enough number looks like, I'd recommend looking at your monthly spending and then reverse engineering the income you'd need to support that level of spending with a confident level. I've talked about this right here before. We call it the rich ratio. It's all about having enough income in retirement. I'll link that video here at the end for a deeper dive on that piece. Step number 2, build a retirement paycheck. Instead of thinking in terms of a big pile of money, which won't do you any good in retirement, think in terms of income streams. How will you pay yourself in retirement? This is where we use things like a 3-bucket plan, layered in with income from Social Security and pensions, investment property, even annuities if it makes sense for you, to build that retirement paycheck and get the income flowing like clockwork. That can ease a lot of retirement anxiety. When you clearly see, here's my income for the next 30 years, retiring doesn't feel as scary anymore because you got a good plan in place for how you're going to pay the bills. The third step, step number 3, test drive your retirement before you take the leap. I call this the retirement rehearsal. Take a month off as you're getting close if you have the vacation time banked. If you don't, at least cobble together a couple of weeks. Do it around a holiday. Do what you need to do. Don't plan the huge trip at this time. Just do some living, the kind of stuff that you do every day in your retirement. Live on your projected retirement income and see how it feels. You'll either say, wow, I can actually do this, or like, okay, not quite ready. Either way, that's powerful information. You wouldn't buy a car without test driving it. Do the same for your retirement. Now, I said that there were 3 things. I changed my mind. Here's a 4th one. I hear it too often not to mention it here, and it's this. I'll get bored if I retire early. Look, retirement's not about doing nothing. It's about doing what matters on your terms. Retirement is different for every person, but what's key about it is that your time is your own. You decide what to fill your retirement up with. Now, make no mistake, you have to decide how to fill it up to make it meaningful. Maybe it's volunteering. Maybe it's starting a passion project, learning a new language, reconnecting with old friends. It can be anything you want it to be. That's the magic of retirement. Your cage door is wide open, but all of these things have one thing in common. They all stop you from waiting for life to happen later, and they get you started with living. Now, here's what I'd like you to take away from the video today. Working longer can help, but only if it's part of a bigger plan. Time is currency. You don't get refunds. And retiring earlier than you thought is possible and doable with the right strategy. If you want help creating the strategy, building that personalized income plan that gives you the freedom to retire on your own terms, check out the link in the description below. And while you're continuing to educate yourself on all things retirement, here's that rich ratio video that I mentioned to you earlier.